Hi guys, it's Brooke here. I have a super quick favor to ask. When you have a moment, please take just a second to give this podcast a 5-star review. This will help me to continue the podcast and continue to bring these resources to the community. Thank you so much for that 5-star review. Heard that that's this phrase that horses serve as mirrors to our emotions and behavior.
Not only mirrors, I'm going to say lie detectors in a lot of ways. Because what they will do is they will rat you out. If you're not the same inside and outside, they will rat you out. The good horses, the ones that have been allowed to tell us no, the ones that know that they're safe to offer an opinion. And by what I mean by say no is like choose not to connect, not do whatever they want. They don't get to step on your head. But I have had students that will come in and, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. And, I can tell, with my little spidey senses kind of going that I don't think they're fine. There's something going on. And the horse will absolutely lean away from them like, no, no, no. And so we'll talk about that. If I have someone, if they're nervous, the horse will behave nervously. People used to say, oh, the horse can smell fear. Probably. I'm going to guess that that's true. But I think more than that, the horse might be thinking, okay, that big, tall biped there is scared. Maybe I should be scared too.
Hi guys, it's Brooke here, and I'm so excited to tell you about this week's episode. This week I get to talk with Sally Conrad, who is the founder and lead instructor at Two Bear Therapeutic Riding Center in Whitefish, Montana. And I get to have this conversation with Sally and bring my two passions together. And I just absolutely love all things horses and, of course, neurodiverse individuals, and being able to have this conversation about the healing power of horses and how regulating they are, how therapeutic they are, and what a gift they are when you're in their presence. And I had the opportunity of visiting this facility in Whitefish over the winter, and it is the most stunning location you can imagine. If you've ever been to Montana or seen beautiful pictures or videos of Montana, it is all that and more. And so I wish you could see it, but you can picture what she's talking about when she's referring to her program. And I just can't wait to get this information out there and be able to share what a gift horses can be to all individuals, especially those that are neurodiverse. And I hope you enjoy. All right, I'm so excited to have this conversation today. Thank you so much for being here, Sally. And this is a topic that is definitely something is near and dear to my heart and something I just love. And I'm just so grateful that you took the time to have this conversation today and share this important information with our listeners. So before we begin, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you. And Sally Conrad is one of the founders, as well as the lead instructor at Two Bear Therapeutic Riding Center in Whitefish, Montana. In her younger years, she managed an Arabian horse breeding farm in Illinois, giving the young horses their starts, and had ample opportunity to observe horse behavior in herd settings. She has taught guitar and dance, as well as horsemanship for many years. So thank you so much for being here.
It's a delight.
And I'm excited. What a blessing I had to be able to come out and visit Two Bear Therapeutic Riding Center this last winter. And it's just such a gorgeous and peaceful setting and such a perfect place for this type of program. And so I'd love to start with having you share just a little bit about what Two Bear Therapeutic Riding Center is all about and your philosophy and what you guys got going on there.
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity. You are right. It is in a glorious, glorious setting. It's a massive, beautiful ranch that is so much of the this space is donated by Michael Gogan, who owns the place, and basically said to us, "Oh, I'm not utilizing it that much. Why don't we move the program there?" Okay. Anyway, you drive in. It's this glorious, huge, big place, open fields and trees outlining and horses in large pastures. It's just beautiful. And the barns itself it's not a barn. It's nicer than my first house by a long shot, by a long shot. One of our mottos there is We want this place to be therapeutic for all. And that means for the participants, certainly, for the horses, definitely. And we'll talk more about that. But the families that walk in, the volunteers, the staff, the facility itself, we want this to be therapeutic for all because we have the philosophy, if it's not therapeutic for all, it isn't therapeutic for anyone. We can all feel it. So we work really hard to try and have that be a true statement. We have several different programs there. We have therapeutic horsemanship, and or adaptive horsemanship. And this is not always riding. Often it is, but it does not always entail riding the horses. It entails really learning a lot about them, learning about their language, how they communicate, why they do what they do, and being able to connect with them, which we find is truly the secret sauce, is connection with the horses themselves. So that's adaptive horsemanship. We also have a pediatric physical therapist that works utilizing the movement of the horse to get some of her PT goals. And she is finding that to be just brilliant. In fact, she and I are going to be talking at a conference. We hope, we put in an abstract, but talking at a conference about collaborating to have these incredible, gains that she has not seen the likes of until she started working with some of her people on horses. There is a difference, by the way. You and I were talking about this a little before things started, and that's the difference between equine therapy, which is a statement that many people have heard, and then therapeutic horsemanship. There is a big difference. Equine therapy, first of all, the terminology is no longer used in the industry because it says that, do the equines need therapy? I think that's one of the reasons they axed it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, right. Horses are fine. We use instead equine assisted services because these services can use a therapist. That's the capital T therapist, such as a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, a speech pathologist. It can use psychologist, somebody that's doing that kind of counseling with all the letters after their name. Those people are capital T therapists. Many of us, though, as am I am not a capital T therapist. I am a certified therapeutic riding instructor. I have had training in disabilities and all kinds of teaching things. But what we do is considered more of a sport. So it's not billable through insurance, but we adapt a lesson to the student just to help with their needs, whatever they happen to be. Anywhere from physical, where maybe they've got a weak core, or mental, where maybe focus, somebody with ADHD perhaps, working on their ability to focus and slow down, all kinds of things. We're quite trained in those things.
Oh, I love that. That's a really good explanation because I feel like as we were talking about, it can get really blurry and that made it really clear on the differences in the different types of services that are out there for different types of diagnoses and needs. So, and that's important.
Along those lines too, not everybody has to have a diagnosis to be part of our program. And I think that is a really important thing to bring out, not only for us, but for anybody out there that's listening. If you're drawn to horses for whatever reason, for you or for maybe your child, just having that feeling that there might be something in it that could really be beneficial. You don't really have to have a diagnosis, but it does really help to go to a specialized center where perhaps they have training in working with someone with, say, high anxiety, or maybe just some social awkwardness, or whatever it happens to be. Having someone that's trained in these things and basically a lot of times all that means is, can the instructor slow down? Can they attune to that person? And can they realize that just sometimes connection with the horse is a really great goal to have? Not everybody wants to go to a horse show and compete. And that's something that might just be something to consider.
Oh, I love that. That's a really good point. And I think horses can provide such a gift, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit on the horse side of things as well. But I think that is such a good point. And you certainly are seeing individuals with autism as well in your program.
Yes. We see a variety of on the spectrum, as we know, it's a spectrum, and anywhere from just really struggling to interpret social signals all the way to very inward and nonverbal, about everything in between. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. I'd love to talk about the types of skills that you work on when it comes to those autistic individuals and kind of some of the things that you see occurring in the program and the sessions and kind of the beauty of what that looks like.
Oh, they're a lot of fun. I have, I would like to say sadly, but I'm going to say happily, I've got two other instructors, and I say we have two other instructors that are just, if there's a young person that comes in with autism, it's like, that's my person, and they grab them. We all have our particular, little niches that we use, but we all work with everybody. Things that we really work on with people on the autism spectrum is the very first thing that all of us work on is to see if we can get a connection between the person and the horse. Our horses at our center are allowed to tell us no. If there's something going on with our individual that comes in and that horse is just not feeling it, they're allowed to tell us no. And sometimes that's just no, not yet. And sometimes it's a hard no. But if we can get our participants, and especially those with autism, to just come in and slow down and touch the horse and try, and to ability, what we can see. I don't know what they're thinking. They know what they're thinking. I don't know. So I'm going to try, all of us try to say, can you just touch the horse and take a big deep breath? Can you notice if the horse turns away? Take your hands away. Can you come into this other being's world is what we're asking. And what we find happens when the participant is able to do that, we find that their anxiety just drops. And all of a sudden, if they don't have kind of this little fight and flight thing going on, which so many people that walk in our door, I tell you, number one problem that they face, that they struggle with, is anxiety. If we can get that kind of taken care of a little bit, then from that point on, things get pretty magical. Some of the things that we see that they really work on is we've noticed that interactions with the horse, with the encouragement of paying attention to what that horse is telling us, not just sit up tall, bump with your heels, typical riding lesson kind of a thing. But what is the horse telling us? How can you ask the horse? Those kinds of things that we notice they come out of themselves and into another being. And for a lot of people with autism, this is a big deal. Whatever's going on in their head, can you draw them out and into someone else's life? We notice language skills pop up where there have been few or none. We've noticed social interactions and friendliness have increased. And we've noticed that just their behaviors sometimes get to be a lot more calm and regulated. And we have heard from parents that say that these things persist sometimes for days afterwards, after a short time with the horse. A few of the things that we don't see, I want to be really careful when it comes to working with people. I think horses are magic. I do. I think they're magic. People with autism don't need to be cured. They don't need to be cured. What they might want is a little help regulating themselves and coming out of themselves so that their lives can be richer and the people around them can also experience their own cool, interesting selves. That's what we're kind of looking at. We had a parent, this is a long time ago, and no names obviously, but was saying, how come my kid isn't better yet? And so, well, I think they are, but they wanted their hand flapping to stop. It's like, well, that's how they soothe themselves. Well, can't you make it stop? I'm like, well, no, I can't make anything happen, right? However, getting that regulation, and there's something too about the motion of the horse. If the person can ride, there's something about the motion of the horse that their motor sensory place and their speech sensory place are very close to each other in their brain. And there's something about that, we don't know what, but it seems to activate the speech center. And we have noticed kind of across the board that speech definitely increases, functional speech increases as they interact and especially ride horses.
Oh, that's beautiful. That would be a really neat to study. I think that'd be a really neat thing to study and find out what's going on there. But I could see that, I know how therapeutic riding in general is, just for your nervous system, and how regulating it is. What I experienced myself as a rider, how calming it is after I get off my horse, and I can only imagine, for these individuals as well, what they're experiencing, and just to have that space, that safe space,
Yes.
to experience that. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I'd be so curious to hear more about that if somebody took that project on. And, I love what you shared about noticing the horse and noticing the horse's responses, and, really honoring and respecting the horse.
Hmm.
And it's really a partnership, and there's a lot of communication happening. And I feel like that is such a great way to work on environmental awareness, working on those nonverbal forms of communication,
Yes. Yes.
being able to be
Also,
present in the moment.
also consent. Because some people on the autism spectrum, they have trouble with, all the things. If they feel like hugging you, they're going to hug. If they feel like, running into whatever. With the horses, one of the things that we do, we learn how to greet them on the horse's terms. And there's things that we can do with that. But before we touch them, even touch them and then on the horse's neck, we don't let them touch them on the horse's face. We find it very invasive and the horses don't like it, even though those muzzles are so soft and we just
Mhm.
want it. But hold a hand towards the horse's mid-neck or shoulder. If the horse leans away, that's a no, not yet. And for the ones that are able to see that and respond to it, that's teaching consent. And we utilize that as well. And you're right. I mean,
Mm,
all of that
beautiful.
work for our nonverbal kids and young adults as well, letting them know that that horse is always communicating to them, that it kind of, I wonder if it validates them as well. And I try and watch for their communication, and I tell them that too. And we
Yeah.
find that things change.
Yeah. Well, I can see that being so powerful, because a lot of times autistic individuals will resist when they feel a demand or feel unsure.
Mhm.
And, the horse is not giving them a lot of language, verbal language to have to process. And
Correct.
so it's giving them an opportunity to really reflect and notice those things in a really tangible, manageable, digestible way,
Mhm.
because it's not so much to process at once.
I think you are so right. That and that combined with what we talked about just a minute ago with the downregulation of a very active nervous system. I mean, one of the big eye openers for me was reading some of the books by Temple Grandin, describing how she felt, especially as once puberty hit and things went nuts for
Mhm.
her, according to, in her words, and that her amygdala, her flight or fight system was always on full open. And I can't imagine how that feels. I really can't. So again, that down regulation that the horses can provide, if you kind of coach into that, it can really tamp that down. So they come in just feeling better and more able to get to activate, to access that thinking brain, right?
Right. Absolutely. That's huge. It's really
Yes.
putting them in that optimal state of arousal,
Yes.
where they're regulated and their brain is more available to learn. And then you can really go and expand. And I imagine that's kind of when you can take it to the next step
Yes.
of opportunity for them.
Exactly. That's what we try on a good day.
Yeah, yes. I think that's so important, because a lot of times I think people that aren't in the horse world, or aren't experiencing horses on a regular basis, feel like they want their child to participate with horses. It sounds really interesting. It sounds wonderful, but to understand truly the benefit, it really is regulating, and that regulation can lead to so many more opportunities for growth.
Yes, exactly right. You know, if you think about, oh, they're going to a therapeutic riding center, you think riding lesson, and they're going to be doing something that the, air quotes here going, typical people do. They take riding lessons. And my child is going to experience that too, and that's going to be really good. Yes, that's a part of it. That is a small part of it. That's a small part of it to us. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that's kind of the bonus part. The
It
real
is.
the real benefit is the everything we've been talking about, in my opinion. I just think it's
I
such a blessing to, give them that chance to be regulated in such a beautiful space with people and with animals, and to feel that sense of safety in that moment is a powerful gift.
And acceptance too. I think that, again, and I keep going back to a few of our participants that are nonverbal or not a lot of functional speech. Let's just put it that way. And the horses don't care. They don't care.
Right.
Horses think what they care about is, first of all, you're not going to eat me, right? Because they're a prey animal, we're predators. And the second part is like, can I connect with you? Will you see me enough as a horse for me to feel safe to connect with you? And beyond that, they really are concerned with how you make them feel. That's it. And if, we have one that, makes funny noises or whatever, horses don't care. I've had some people that, I had a real sensitive mare, and she's gone now, but she was amazing with our participants with autism and others as well. But, I had always thought, oh my gosh, she's going to hear a squawk or a hand flap or a little run in a circle or something, and she's going to get out of there. Opposite, because something else was going on between that student and that horse, and she was fully accepting. I mean, she might flinch a little bit if they really moved quickly, but she stayed with them. And I just, nobody taught her to do that. That was all her. She was amazing.
Yes. I mean, that's just the highlight of why they're so incredible. They're operating on a different level.
Yes.
Beautiful magic.
No, very.
I've heard this phrase that horses serve as mirrors to our emotions and behavior. And, I imagine you see that in your work a lot. And I'd love to kind of just talk about that a little bit. Yeah.
Absolutely. Not only mirrors, I'm going to say lie detectors in a lot of ways, because what they will do is they will rat you out. If you're not the same inside and outside, they will rat you out. The good horses, the ones that have been allowed to tell us no, the ones that know that they're safe to offer an opinion. And by what I mean by say no is like choose not to connect, not do whatever they want. They don't get to step on your head. But I have had students that will come in and, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. And, I can tell, with my little spidey senses kind of going that I don't think they're fine. There's something going on. And the horse will absolutely lean away from them like, no. And so we'll talk about that. If I have someone that is, if they're nervous, the horse will behave nervously. People used to say, oh, the horse can smell fear. Probably. I'm going to guess that that's true. But I think more than that, the horse might be thinking, okay, that big, tall biped there is scared. Maybe I should be scared too. So in that essence, maybe some mirroring. They certainly do mirror us if they are connected with us when it comes to their movement. And I like to do that first with them and then see if they will do it with me. But that is a syncing up that they will often do. But the other piece to that goes beyond just the mirroring and the ratting out is the seeking to provide comfort. And this is something that I have felt personally and with others as well, where that horse, like they are loaning that person their huge nervous system and say, you are not okay, but I am. Come lean in. And get a little poked up every time because I've had this happen with me multiple times where they just come in to do that.
It's beautiful.
It is an amazing thing to experience. Amazing to experience. Yes.
Yes. I actually was just at the barn last week, and a woman that is at our barn that does the beamer, uses the beamer. She does the beamer at our barn, and she said she was having a really hard day, and she came to do the beamer on somebody else's horse because she does them on all the horses. And that horse knew she was really holding in a lot of emotion, and he came over and just put his head in her chest and let her sob.
Yes. Yes.
And she's like, it was the most incredible experience I will ever have with a horse. And
yes,
it's just beautiful when they do that.
And these are the kinds of things I'm talking about. This happens frequently. I would say frequently between me and the horses. I've experienced it just an incredible number of times, but watching a few of our students, young men in particular, and this is with a horse that would rat everybody out. Whiskey is his name. And if somebody came in kind of saying, I'm fine, but they're not, he'd lean them away from them. It was hysterical because he'd nail them right away. But with this young man that was, he came to a lesson, he would have been maybe 10. And the family was going through a huge upheaval. And he didn't want to ride. He didn't want to interact. He could speak. He could speak just fine, but he was choosing to. He was very sullen and surly, really inward. And I'm not going to fight that. What good is going to come from fighting that? And I just said, look, you don't have to talk to me. You don't have to ride the horse. Let's just go up and it's not the horse's fault. Let's go up and why don't you just brush him a little bit? And he consented to do that. And I'm watching him and he's brushing, and suddenly he's brushing slower and slower. And then I see Whiskey lean towards him and, cry again. I cry a lot, by the way. It's just so touching. And then all of a sudden I saw this young fella just lean his head in that horse's mane and sob for 10 minutes. So whatever was going on, his mom reported after that. And I just, gave him space, just made sure everybody was safe, which they were, and just kind of got out of his way a little bit. And then when he kind of pulled himself together, I didn't make a deal out of it. I handed him a tissue and kind of went on like nothing happened. Don't call attention to it. What young man wants to be told that was a good cry? I mean, they just don't.
Right.
Anyway, and, let him take Whiskey for a walk. I said, why don't you just take him for a little walk and you guys can have a chat if you want. And I could see his lips moving. I don't know what he was saying. It doesn't matter. But his mom did report that there was a big change in him at that point. So something shifted for him, and that horse was there to assist with that, So it was
wow.
I know.
Wow,
right?
what an amazing thing to witness.
Yes.
To see that. It's incredible.
One of many. Ugh.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow. I would be crying a lot too.
All the time. All the time.
It's amazing. Oh my goodness. So I'd love to talk a little bit about the studies that are going on with the horse's heart rate and human heart rates. This is new to me, so I'm excited as I'm learning and been researching since I heard about it. And I know you have a lot more knowledge about it, and I'd love to have you have a chance to share a little bit about this.
Absolutely. So there is there is quite a bit about humans, like some testing between humans about, they call it physiological synchrony. And it has to do with not only heart rate, but breathing rates and physical movement. They notice this in humans, human to human, when there's something rhythmic going on, like drumming or dance, or even finger tapping. There was this exercise, little experiment that was done with finger tapping. And, we have understood that this to be very true. How many ancient cultures, they come together and they sing or they dance or they drum. This has been going on. It's a way of getting a tribe together and on the same length. And they have come to find out that, yes, heart rates sync up, breathing rates sync up. We all just do this. They are beginning to find it's a little harder with trying to get things with horses, because if you don't have a really good idea of what's going on in the human's mind, maybe the horse is reacting to that. But yes, the science that's come out so far is showing that if you've got a calm horse that feels safe, so this is where we start with what we're doing, Therapeutic for All. The horses have to feel safe. They have to be felt attuned to, and the definition for that is being seen, being heard, feeling felt, getting gotten. I wish that was original, but it's not. If they feel that from us, the predators, this is kind of where that whole idea of loaning their nervous system to us can often come in. Their heart rates go much slower than ours. At rest, like standing up rest, 28 to 44 beats a minute is typical for a horse. Ours goes quite a bit faster than that in general, and it appears that it can cause our heart rates to drop just by being in proximity to them. I don't know how that happens, but it does. When our heart rates drop in the same way of us taking that big deep breath, our heart rate can drop. We have a tendency to do that in their presence as well, trying to match their breath rate, which again is much slower than ours and deeper. And then also when all of that happens, our cortisol levels will drop. All of this gets us out of that sympathetic nervous reaction, flight, fight, freeze, and down into social connection and down into relaxation a little bit. At its very, If given the opportunity, I bet it'd knock us all out. We'd have a nice nap. But there is something definitely to that. We've seen it time and time again, people that are around horses that have been allowed to feel safe and now be curious about people, choosing to connect. It's pretty much across the board. Everybody says, I feel so much more relaxed. And that's physiologically what's going on, is all of those regulations. And there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
Another thing we can do along those lines, if we've got something going and we want to add that rhythm piece to it, is if we've connected with that horse, we're both breathing quietly, we're both feeling more relaxed, the horse feels safe, the horse is telling us yes and choosing to connect. If you're walking with that horse, try and match the steps of their front feet with your feet. Now you've got the rhythm piece going as well, which makes it even a deeper kind of connection. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on with this in both,
I love that.
some of the newer sciences like heart math. It's quite new. I don't ascribe to anything being termed a pseudoscience, because all that means is they just don't know enough yet. In fact, they might not be able to measure enough yet. And I don't know who they're trying to make, to get pseudoscience, the pseudo word off of that. Who do they have to make happy? I don't know. All I know is that there's certain aspects of this that absolutely line up. And it's also going back to some of the more easily quantified sciences, like with human to human, far easier to quantify those. But there is something going on, absolutely. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
It is.
And palpable. You feel it if you're there. Absolutely.
Yes. This show is brought to you by Therapeutic Approach to Growth. Therapeutic Approach to Growth helps families with relationship and behavioral needs. Their holistic programs are individualized to honor and respect each family and their autistic son or daughter's sense of self through programs such as relationship development intervention, naturalistic ABA, and animal-assisted services. If you're finding yourself frustrated or discouraged with your current behavioral programs and would like to see more long-term meaningful growth for you and your family, then contact TAG today at www.tagforgrowth, that's TAGFORGROWTH.com, to learn more about how to schedule a consultation or how they can offer you the help your family needs, whether in person, remotely, or in a school setting. Again, that's www.tagforgrowth.com. I love it. I love that it's backing up what everybody is feeling in these experiences.
Correct. Exactly right.
It is so true. I think when I have clients come out to see the pony that I have, everybody leaves and says, this was the best day ever. Yeah. And they don't know that they all say the same thing, but they all consistently say in like big excitement, this was the best day ever. And, there's something about that, just being, and they're not riding in my program, we're not riding, and it's just being in the presence and having that opportunity to connect and to be present.
Yes. And you bring up such a good point with that. With people, we share the same brain structures all the way up to our big fat frontal cortex. Exactly same brain structures in a horse as in a human. And up until that point, horses do have a frontal cortex that's quite small. And there is a little bit of debate in that, but it appears from what we know now that it's there, it's quite small, which means that they're not capable of thinking terrifically in the future. And we know this, if you have nothing else other than this one fact, if you have a big pile of hay out, horses will eat the hay and then they'll pee in it. They're not thinking about the future. They're not thinking about lunch. They're thinking, I don't want to splash my legs. Oh, here's a nice soft spot and I'll pee in the hay. And we can't blame them for that. They're opportunistic and that's just how they're going to be. But at the same time, us remembering that they're living in this moment. How do I feel now, right now? And for them, if nothing is wrong, I've been fed, I have had water, I feel safe, I'm reasonably comfortable. If nothing's wrong, everything's great. Not just like, oh, yeah, but something. No. Everything's great. We as humans get that big old prefrontal cortex involved and we can tell ourselves all kinds of stories. It's good too, but we can really mess things up with the stories we tell ourselves. And for some people who come into the horses world, coached, obviously you're coaching and helping them through being in this moment, and how incredibly good that can feel. Maybe the first time in their lives, in their conscious lives, that they have felt regulated, downregulated, dropping some of that anxiety, and then just being in the moment. How good that feels, right?
I love that. That makes a lot of sense. I hadn't thought about it in that way. I appreciate you sharing that. And it just makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And it's just such a beautiful thing. It
Oh,
is really such a gift.
you're the best. Horses are the best.
They are the best. Yes. Oh, I'd love for you to share just if there's a story, a success story that stands out that, kind of was the most meaningful. And if there's anything else that you haven't shared already, I'd love to have you have that opportunity just to
Oh,
bring it to life one more time.
thank you, Brooke. I'm really enjoying this conversation. It would be a wish of mine for the whole world to be able to experience this once. The experience, not just being around the horse and thumping on him and doing what you want, although even that can be quite amazing and transformative, but to have it guided through and let them really see, with what we can know now. And again, I have this feeling that 10 years from now, I'll think, what an idiot I was. I didn't know. And we know what we know. And I've been trying to learn and continue to learn more and more about this. So I do thank you for this opportunity. I've got a bunch of stories, but I was trying to pick out one. One of them is a little boy and on the autism spectrum, definitely in his own brain. And he's got some functional speech, but not much. Parents tend to be authoritarian with him, so, and because of that, he sort of just parrots them, say, thank you, that kind of thing. Plus with his behavior, I only see them at the riding center, so I'm not really certain. Interesting little guy. And look, he's sensory seeking, so he lurches around and falls and bumps into you and, takes off running a little bit. Coordination is a little bit off. When we have him on the horse, we have a leader, two sidewalkers, so one person on either side, because he's been known to kind of try to launch himself. He's not violent towards the horses. He has no violence, so he is safe to ride that way. We just have to kind of watch him. But because he's sensory seeking, he'll kind of wonk himself off to one side. And my thing when I was teaching him is like, I'm going to let him about half fall because I want him to take care of himself. He knows where center is. He can walk. He knows where center is. So we kind of do those things, but trying to get him, the important part was trying to get him to engage using words. And he did have the capacity to use words. So I know neurologically he has speech. And to get him to do anything having to do with the moment was, didn't have a lot of luck. Then one day we're riding out in the field and near where the other horses are pastured. And he's kind of lurching around doing his little thing. And all of a sudden he kind of stops. And we're continuing to walk. And he looks over and he picks up a finger and he points. And he says, 5 horses, 2 brown ones. So the thing is I would hear one word from him here and there. And that was it. And now all of a sudden it gave me a little glimpse into if he could still his mind and come out from his little brain, whatever was going on in there, his private world, and look outward. And then he started counting trees. And he also, at one point, it was springtime, we could hear birds. And we stopped because the bird song was just beautiful. I said, what do you hear? Now it's a question that I'm going to ask him to answer. I can ask, he'll do what he wants. And he said birds. 2 birds. And there were 2 different kinds of bird songs going, which to me was very advanced. He is one that I think about a lot. And then another one, if I may, is
Sure.
I've got a bunch, but another one in particular. Sure. There was a young man, and he was actually there for physical therapy. So he was working with our physical therapist. This would be his first time trying to get on a horse. And what we were really after was regulation first, obviously. So, and he came in highly dysregulated. He was screaming. He was thumping on his mom a little bit, and not in anger. You could see his little face. He had fear. And so we don't force anybody that's afraid to do anything. No one gets anywhere if you force somebody that's afraid. Horses are humans. But we all just had this sense, the therapist and I had this sense that with this mare, the one that I had told you about before, she's gone now, but Athena is her name. And she was often the first horse that people met. And especially those, the more dysregulated they were, the calmer she got. Beautiful Morgan mare. Anyway, we had her in our indoor arena, and this kid is seeing this, and he's screaming and arching and pushing against his parents and his mom, and if I would lead the horse a little closer, he would arch farther. He was scared. But then I noticed as we're walking that as I got a little bit closer, and I wouldn't get too close, I didn't want to go past threshold where he's in full panic. But I was noticing that he was still crying, but he's leaning forward and crying more softly. He's getting curious. Mm. So I just kind of led her a little bit closer, and then he'd get curious, and then I'd take her away, and he'd kind of go back to his kind of medium cry, whine, kind of in a funk. He's just kind of there. And by the way, I wasn't leading, pardon me. I was riding her. So he could see she's safe. There's another human riding her, she's safe. I'm riding around, and I kind of keep spiraling a little closer. And then all of a sudden, as I'm getting quite close, now within, touching distance, and he stopped crying completely and he leaned forward towards her. And I hopped off really quick and I said, plunk him on. And they did. And he screamed bloody murder for 1 second until she started walking. And then it stopped dead. Stopped dead. And he put both hands on her neck, just kind of braced himself up on his neck, and just got this look on his face of, if I could put a word to it, he would be thinking, wow. Mm-hmm. And the rhythm of her walking, the warmth of her neck, all of us got real quiet. Mom was sobbing up on the loading dock. We just went away, and that was it. He went from, fight and flight kind of a feeling to, wow, just regulate. And riding, he was able to have, I don't know, wasn't a long time. It was too bad. I think they had financial issues, even just getting themselves there. It was quite sad. But he had 5 or 6 sessions and was speaking sentences after that.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. That is such a testament to your careful guidance and, being mindful in the moment to notice those signs and his signals and to be able to make really careful adjustments. And I think that's such a testament to what can be done when you stay in that place, that you don't force compliance and you don't force demands on a child or anybody that's struggling, but you stay in that really mindful guiding mindset, and how much you can get done with that, building that trust.
Yes. The idea, if we are attuned to the horses, the human sees that. The participant can see that. I get the sense that they see, if the horse is allowed to tell them no, so am I. If the horse is allowed to say, give me a minute, so am I. And if they're treating the horse with calmness and respect, and I also see that they're doing that with me, then we're all safe and we can all try and we'll do it together. And I think because we are really attuned to our horses, that automatically goes. And I say we, the instructors, staff, and volunteers as well, they pick this up so quickly. They attune to the participant. In our business, it's a little tough sometimes to parse out, is the behavior that I'm seeing with the participant, is this disability or is it learned behavior? And, especially if it's a negative kind of a behavior, avoidant or whatever it happens to be. And it's the same with horses. We remind ourselves that behavior, there's always a reason for behaviors, always. And it might be inadvertent training. I didn't mean to teach them how to do that, but I did. Or it could be, how they're feeling in the moment. Their bodies might not be feeling well. It doesn't matter. Behavior is there for a reason. And a lot of times what we do by attuning to that, noticing it, we can also give a little bit of extra time so the horse or the person can try and regulate themselves and just try again. And that we see this over and over again all the time. It's such a beautiful
awareness and skill in life, and that understanding, it really brings around that self-awareness in those moments, to be able to learn about yourself and how you're responding, and then to learn about the perspective of another person or animal in that way, and how you interact in that level. It's really profound. I think it has a lasting impact, and it makes sense why it's such a therapeutic experience.
It certainly can be. I think, and that's one of the reasons too, is, maybe a little bit of the old hippie in me, the idea that you have to have a strict program protocol other than safety. Safety is non-negotiable. And that's with the participants' behavior and the horse's behavior. Safety is non-negotiable. But beyond that, it's like, follow the child. Just follow them. What are they telling us they need in this moment? Let's try that. And using the skills that we've developed is, really, we try to be very aware instructors, and we all do it in our own, with our own gifts. We have our own areas, but I tell you what, we're a good bunch. We're cool. I love us.
I agree. I've loved learning all about your program, and just hearing you share your success stories, and just the stories are really moving. And I think they can really be examples and provide opportunities for inspiration and hope. And hopefully, our listeners are getting some great ideas, and whether it's a program or it's a family looking into this kind of support for their child, I think that it's really important information that I'm so glad we were able to have this conversation and get it out there to our community.
Me too. Thanks again for this platform, Brooke, and for the work that you're doing too. It sounds fascinating. And I think that anything that you can bring into the home, so that it's not just, let's go to, this learning place and do this thing. Instead, the things that you're teaching, these things that they could take into the home and do on a regular basis, how valuable that is. Because it's gonna make their lives so much richer all the way around.
Yes, that's what we're working on. Quality of life. How can we help our whole family's system have a better quality of life, or a high quality of life?
Yes.
And it can be done.
Absolutely.
Well, I'd love for you to share just a little bit about how people can learn about Two Bear Therapeutic Riding Center, how they could potentially, if they're in Montana and they are in the area, in Whitefish or in the surrounding areas, if they could participate, or if they want to donate as well. I'd love you had that opportunity to get that word out there.
Well, we're very easy to find. If you would just look up Two Bear, and it's spelled out TWO, Two Bear, like the sort of a bear, BEAR, Therapeutic Riding Center. We've got a lovely website. We have a way to contact us, a way to donate, a way to, just even ask for a meet and greet if you happen to be in the area, whether or not you've got a possible participant. If you just want to see what we're about, contact us there. We have an office admin that is Jonna on the spot. She gets the job done and gets back to people. It is a wonderful place. If you're in the area, come and visit. We love having visitors come out. We do have our main fundraising event is in the middle of May. It's called Campfires for a Cause. I don't have the date in front of me. I think it's May 16th, something like that. We transform our indoor arena into a beautiful place, and we generally have amazing things to auction off. And I tell you what, if we get her back again, our auctioneer, just to watch her at work, she is phenomenal. It's worth the ticket price. We are very fortunate that a lot of our program is given by our main donor, Michael Gogan, who is the one that owns the property. However, for our programs, we need continued support from our incredibly generous donors. And if you want to be a part of that, $2, $200, $2,000 on up, we would love to have you be a part of our program. We not only have the things that I talked about before, the adaptive horsemanship, which is considered a sport, but it's basically coaching too. It's a lot of coaching, taking what do we need in this moment and going forward. But we also have our physical therapy that happens there. We have quite a few groups that come through. So not only the individual lessons are very, very small groups, sometimes 2 riders that will be together, But we have larger groups. A lot of these are unmounted. We have school groups that come through now regularly, and they have a part where they learn about the horses from one or two of the instructors. They also just get to experience a ranch and what that's like. We have family support. It's all gatherings, I guess. It's not really a program. It's more gatherings. We have a variety of little kind of parties throughout the year where the families of our participants and our volunteers and basically anybody that feels like showing up, they just kind of get to come and hang out. And Brooke, you had mentioned it before that at your barn that sometimes this is the only place that people with some of our special needs kids can feel welcome. And that is just an incredible gift we can give them in itself. That we're finding that to be true. We have other groups that are taking part in what we have to offer. There's a group that deals with addiction recovery as well as mental health. They come out with their therapist, and I teach a horsemanship lesson. They draw all their own parallels, although it cracked me up one time that I was talking about being congruent, the same inside and outside, being honest. Horses are always honest. And this one young woman in this group put her hand up. She said, "You're talking about us, aren't you?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, I am." But it's the horses. You can draw your own conclusions from this, but this is how horses are. And I'm going to tell you, this is how you are too. But I stay in my lane. I'm not a therapist. I don't try and figure out why they do what they do. I just show them what horses do and why it's so much better.
Nice. I love it. Oh, well, then those what we were talking about earlier is that you're really creating a community environment and a place that families can feel comfortable and safe and, relax. And so it's just a beautiful thing, outside of the sessions, that an environment where the children already still feel safe and then they can come to these events, I think is such a great thing.
Exactly. Well, our former chairman of our, we're a nonprofit. Jason Peters is his name. I believe you met him. And he's also working with us in another capacity, and he's a volunteer, and he is helping with outreach and things like this. He's quite very well connected, and we talk about him being everywhere all at once. He's quite, but he kind of talked about the whole place being an ecosystem. An ecosystem of being therapeutic for all. We want this to be a sanctuary for people that can come and they can feel this and hopefully go away refreshed and able to take the things that they learned just by being there, that regulation, that standing there and breathing slowly like a horse might and feeling the ground underneath your feet and just being able to take that and take it anywhere and pull that self-regulation in anytime they need it, which for me is like 100 times a day.
Beautiful. Oh, I love it. Well, we will end with that. That is a great way to end. And what a beautiful thing you're doing. And I'm just so grateful that you were here to share all this important information. And thank you again. And it's amazing work that you're doing. So
thank you, Brooke. And I'm very happy to do it. If anybody has questions, they can certainly reach out and we will all do our best to answer them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sally. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Brooke. You have a wonderful, wonderful, magical week.
Thank you. You as well.
Okay. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
I'm dancing on the edge again. The wind is calling my name. I'm dancing on the edge again. This time I'm not looking back there. You can change me, you can tell me down. I'll leave echoes in every place I find. I'll break the molds with rebels mind. I'm a hurricane of free born mind.
The information provided on this podcast is for general informational purposes only. The content shared is based on the experiences, opinions, and perspectives of the hosts and their guests and should not be construed as medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment recommendations. The discussions and topics covered are intended to foster understanding and awareness of autism therapies but are not a substitute for professional medical guidance. Before making any decisions regarding therapies or treatments, we strongly encourage you to consult with a qualified healthcare provider who can provide personalized recommendations based on your unique circumstances. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge and agree that the hosts, guests, and producers are not responsible for any consequences, damages, or outcomes arising from the use or application of any information during the show.